I've been asked on several occasions to share parts of my testimony and videotape it, since not all of you have an opportunity to come down to the gate or to the Roar meetings and hear what the Lord lays on our hearts. And since I had some time on my hands this morning, I thought I'd share probably one of, if not the most troubling parts and the most beneficial part of me walking out the path that I decided to take. I was born and raised in a good Christian home, had great Christian parents, had decided that one day I woke up and decided that I didn't want to be a Christian anymore, and it wasn't real to me. It wasn't worth the trouble. I was in a really bad place in my life. A lot of bad things had happened. And so I kind of switched gears and went in the opposite direction for a while. And of course, I began to go to jail, and had a lot of trouble with the police and legal issues and things of that nature. In and out of jail a dozen or more times until finally, in my last sentencing, they decided they would send me to prison. And so while I was waiting in the county jail to go and start that prison sentence, I was communicating with my mother over the telephone. My father had already passed. She was very upset at the prospect of me going to prison. It wasn't something she hadn't dealt with before, because I had a brother who'd been to prison before, and she was familiar with the whole concept. But it was pretty much her policy that she would not visit her children while they were in jail. She always told me she just couldn't stand to see her boys in that situation. So even though we talked on the telephone and things like that, she would never come and visit. But one day, while I was sitting around watching television,
after 250 feet, turn right, Hills Creek Road.
It was visitation day, and they called my name over the intercom, and I was a little confused because, again, I knew what Mom's thought was on all that, and certainly wasn't expecting to get up there and see that it was her, but it was. And when I asked her why she decided to come up there, of course, like any mother, she was upset and told me that she knew that I was going to be gone for a while, and she wanted to see me before they sent me what we call down the road. She reiterated something that I already knew, that out of all the people that she'd seen get in and out of jail, that she never expected me to wind up there. It was something she never factored into my future. So we just talked, and of course we cried and shared how much we loved each other.
Cartersville Highway for 12 miles.
It was actually a pretty good visit. She assured me that she'd be there when I got out, that out of all the people who I'd hurt and all the people who had decided that they were finished giving me a second chance, that she was not going to be one of those people. And so visitation was over with, and she left. I went back to my cell block. The next day I tried to call her on the telephone. Couldn't reach her. I tried several times that day to call her and several times the next day. And just to tell her, how much I appreciated her coming and what her words meant to me. So finally I became a little worried that I couldn't reach her on the telephone. So I called my aunt, her sister, and asked had she heard from Mama. And her response was, "Oh, well, you haven't heard." And although I didn't know exactly what she meant by that, I had this terrible feeling come over me that something was wrong. She began to tell me that the day that my mother showed up at the jail, first time she'd ever been to visitation up there, that after visitation was over with, she left, pulled down to the foot of the hill at Zena Drive, if you're familiar with that area, where it empties out onto 41. Pulled up to the stop sign, and then proceeded to pull out in front of a vehicle that was running 60 plus miles an hour. The vehicle hit her in the driver's door, and it was a really bad wreck. I don't know all the physical injuries that she sustained in the wreck. I know that it almost killed her. And I know that this mother who had raised all her children in the same house, who had sustained a Christian family for 40 or 50 years at the same address, never saw that home again. She wound up in a nursing home or assisted living, and her life, although it went on, was, as she knew it, was pretty much over with. I mean, my reaction, as you can imagine, was not good. Out of all the things that my drug use and drug addiction and lifestyle had cost me, now it had cost me and my family our anchor, and cost all her friends this wonderful woman that had never met a stranger, had never met someone who didn't love her more than anything. It was a very hard time for me. All sorts of thoughts ran through my head, and of course I considered suicide and just about every other option there is for someone in my position to consider. And I'd like to tell you that by some miraculous, instantaneous move of God, that I was
After 1/2 mile,
completely and instantly healed of all the hurt and anguish that particular situation caused me, but that wouldn't be true. I was mad at myself. I was mad at God. I was mad at everyone that I could think of. And still to this day, I wonder had I not done the things that ended me up in jail, if she might still be here. I want to tell you that the Bible says all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. And it's debatable about whether or not it was God's will that I be in that jail. It's debatable about whether or not it was God's will that she pull out in front of that car that day. But I can tell you that through all that, through the healing process for me and her and my family,
Highway 113, A15 Parkway, for 6.7 miles.
That God has shown us all that He can, in fact, use anything or everything for the good of those people who will seek Him and turn to Him. I know a lot of times we don't understand why things happen the way they do. We call life unfair, and we walk our paths every day with questions that don't seem to get answered. As far as that particular situation goes, I still have some too. But I know that that woman who came and saw me that day, completely out of character. And I know that the woman that pulled out in front of that car and never saw home again, whose life was drastically changed forever at that particular moment, still loved me. I came home from prison a couple years later. It was as if nothing ever changed. As if I'd never done anything wrong. As if she didn't blame me one bit for what had happened to her. Somehow or another she found it in her heart, in her mind, to be able to go ahead and live her life, although it was much different than what she was accustomed to. She was able to live her life like nothing had ever changed. And I think from all that, there are two lessons to be learned. Number one is that every single thing that we do, every step that we take out on our path affects more than just us. That situation affected my entire family and people that my mother had known and been friends with for decades. And number two, that if there is a perfect example of how much God cares about His children and how much He loves them, how totally encompassing grace is and forgiveness, and she displayed that to me when I came home from prison. Forgiveness is hard. Life is hard.
Bear right. Highway 101, Highway 113.
But God is able to help us through the littlest situations and the biggest ones. Most people who will watch this or know about this have said, or you will probably say, that something like, I'm not sure if I could live with myself. after something like that. And let me assure you that every day when I look in the mirror, there is something that reminds me that that whole scenario was all my fault, that I'm going to have to live with that the rest of my life. But the great thing is that as soon as that voice begins to talk, there's another one that says, I'm forgiven, that I'm still loved, and I'm still sought after by the very one that taught my mother to love the way she loved me. And that's really all I want for those of you who are watching this, is to somehow find it in your heart to forgive the people that have wronged you or hurt you, and realize that you can forgive them and you can go on, that you don't have to abandon them, that you can forgive and forget, and that you can continue to love them. Because as long as we live on this planet, as long as we're human beings, out of all the things that we are going to require, there's going to be one that we can't live without. And that's the love that God put in our hearts for each other. And I hope without an incident like the one that I went through, or something even more drastic, my friends and family can learn that lesson and use it to help somebody else. Just like I hope this video will help somebody else.